The lanterns strung above Hartwell Meadows were the kind that look effortless and cost a fortune. I know because I approved the purchase order. 200 of them, wound through the white oak canopy, throwing gold light across the lawn where 40 people sat eating a 6-course dinner. I had also, in a roundabout way, arranged my sister Diana's rehearsal dinner. 300 guests expected Sunday. The society event of someone's season, hers apparently, and our mother's, and the future mother-in-law, who had been cataloging every detail since the entree arrived. I sat at the far end of the family table between a teenage cousin who hadn't looked up from his phone and a vacant chair that once belonged to a groomsman with a scheduling conflict. Symbolic in retrospect. Diana held court at the head table beside her fiancé, Elliot, a mergers attorney whose family controlled enough commercial property in this city to have their name on 2 parking garages. She was explaining the photography plan to no one in particular, and everyone simultaneously. 4 photographers, she said. A cinematographer for the ceremony. A lifestyle correspondent from a regional luxury publication, who might, depending on Diana's mood and the light, feature the wedding in their autumn spread. Our mother listened with the particular expression she reserved for Diana's announcements, a kind of reverent attention, like someone watching a performance they had paid to see. I sipped my water. The estate's chef had prepared the menu Diana had approved in February. Everything tasted correct. I didn't taste much of it. It was our father who noticed I'd gone quiet. "Vivienne," he said. "You seem far away tonight. Just taking it all in." Diana's laugh cut cleanly across the table. Vivienne's always like this at family things. Overwhelmed by the occasion. No one challenged that. Then her eyes landed on me with the particular attention that meant something else was coming. She tilted her head at my dress, a clean navy shift, understated, from a boutique I liked, and her expression shifted into something performative and faintly pitying. "I asked for cocktail attire," she said, addressing the bridesmaids more than me. "Vivienne has her own interpretation of that, I suppose." I said it was cocktail attire. She smiled. "It's fine. Not everyone has the same eye for occasion." Elliot's mother, Constance, leaned forward with her wine. She asked what I did professionally. Something about the way Diana had described me suggested property management, she said. "I manage a portfolio, yes." Diana clarified for the table. "She handles rentals. Student housing mostly. Leaky faucets and noise complaints." Constance's smile held its shape without committing to anything. I cut into my fish. Then Diana tapped her glass. She stood and the table quieted with the efficiency of people trained by experience. "Elliot and I have been reviewing our plans," she said, voice carrying easily across the lawn. "As you all know, there's a possibility of significant press coverage Sunday. We've thought carefully about how everything will look, and we've decided a few adjustments are necessary." She looked at me directly. "Vivienne," she said, "we're removing you from the wedding party." The silence after that had weight and texture. I heard a spoon click against a bowl somewhere down the table. "It's not personal," Diana continued, her tone suggesting the opposite. "Your bridesmaid fitting was difficult. You seem disengaged. And with the publication potentially attending, we need a cohesive aesthetic from the front row. You understand." I said I didn't actually. My mother, to her credit, attempted something. "Maybe it's easier this way. You never seemed comfortable with all the prep." "I attended everything," I said. Diana pressed on. "You looked uncomfortable in the engagement photos. We cropped you from most of them. I need people up there who want to be present." My father said it seemed harsh. Diana reminded him it was her wedding. She was warming to it now. Vivienne, standing next to my colleagues from the firm, she shook her head. It would look out of place. She'd feel it herself. This way she can sit in the back, no pressure, just enjoy the day. Elliot put his hand on her arm. "Maybe this should wait for a private conversation." "It's decided," Diana said. She raised her glass. The table followed, uncertainly. I set my napkin down and stood. "Where are you going?" my mother asked. "Getting some air." I walked away from the table. Past the ornamental garden I had personally designed with a landscape architect over the course of 8 months. Past the stone fountain I had commissioned, a modest piece from a sculptor I'd found through a contact in Florence. Past the reflecting pond, which had taken 3 seasons to get right, the water chemistry, the plantings, the way the light moved across it at dusk. Diana's laughter resumed behind me, easy and unbroken. I took out my phone and called my property manager. Hartwell Meadows, this is Thomas. Thomas, it's Vivienne Ashby. I need you to reach out to the Calder Whitmore party. The event booked for Sunday. Of course. What should I tell them? I looked back at the glowing lanterns, the white linen, the swans moving on the water I owned. Tell them the venue is no longer available. The owner is exercising her right to cancel. A pause. Should I prepare alternative options for them? No. Just the cancellation. First thing tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Understood. I hung up and walked to my car, the old Volvo I drove specifically for family occasions. It was easier than explaining the other car, the one my family didn't know existed along with most things about me. My father texted as I pulled out. Please don't leave upset. We can talk. I didn't reply. By 10 the next morning my phone had accumulated 4 missed calls from Diana. On the 5th I answered. What did you do? She said. No greeting. Good morning. The venue called this morning. They canceled. The wedding is in 48 hours. Vivienne, I have 300 guests arriving. I have a photographer coming from the city. I need you to help me find somewhere else. You work in property management, you must know venues. I'm not sure why you'd call me, I said. I'm not in the wedding anymore. Remember? Too out of place. A pause, and then something different in her voice. Please. I know last night was too much. But this is an emergency. There might be one option, I said. Thank God. Where? Beautiful property. 12 acres. Capacity for 300 full catering infrastructure. Gardens that photograph extraordinarily well. Give me the contact. Hartwell Meadows. Vivienne, that's where we were last night. They just canceled on us. I know. Something in my tone made her stop. I know, I said again, because I own Hartwell Meadows, Diana. I'm the one who canceled your event. The silence stretched past the point of comfort. When she finally spoke, her voice had gone very small. What do you mean you own it? I purchased it 7 years ago when it came out of receivership. Spent just over $9 million in restoration over 3 years. It's been operating as a premier event venue for 4 seasons. I approved your original booking personally, last spring when I recognized the name on the contract. That's not possible. You manage rental units. I own 43 properties across 4 states, I said. Total portfolio somewhere north of $300 million. The student housing you mentioned at dinner, 12 historic buildings I've converted into workforce housing. I also own Hartwell, 2 boutique hotels, a commercial complex downtown, and several other event properties. The rental work was where I started. I've been doing other things since. Her breathing came through the phone, unsteady. Last night I said, you told 40 people I was an embarrassment. You said it at a dinner where the chef answered to me, under lights I bought on a lawn I planted. You removed me from your wedding party because you thought I was failing quietly, and that failure would look bad in photographs. Vivienne. I didn't know. You didn't ask. You formed an opinion from the car I drive and the clothes I don't perform in, and you kept it without ever once asking whether it was accurate. Please. Her voice cracked. I'll apologize. I'll put you back in the ceremony. I'll do anything. My mother came on the line. Sweetheart, she made a mistake. We all did. But the wedding, is it more unkind than being dismissed in front of everyone at a table I set? I asked her. We'll make it right, my father said. Whatever form that takes. I looked out the window of my office on the 14th floor of a building whose name was not mine but whose lease structure I understood better than anyone in this city. Here is what I need, I said. Diana issues a written apology to every person at that rehearsal dinner. Not privately to all of them. She explains what she got wrong. Done, Diana said immediately. The wedding proceeds at Hartwell, with one condition: no publication. No correspondent, no autumn feature, no performance for an outside audience. A wedding. Agreed. And at some point in the next month, the three of you sit down with me for dinner where you ask about my life and then listen to the answers. My mother said, of course. She said they should have done that years ago. Finally, Diana introduces me on Sunday, not as the sister she tried to minimize, but as the woman who owns the place where they're getting married. A long silence. All right, Diana said. I'll do it. The venue is yours, I told her. Thomas will send a revised contract within the hour. Consider the fee my gift. A wedding present from your embarrassing sister. I hung up. 18 minutes later, an email arrived in every inbox from that rehearsal dinner. Diana had written it herself. She said she owed me an apology that was public because the wrong had been public. She said she had spent years making assumptions about my life without verifying a single one. She said she was sorry, that she had been cruel in the way only people who believe they are superior can be cruel casually without examining it. The last line was addressed to me. She said she didn't deserve the kindness. My father called that evening. He said it took courage, what she'd sent. It took consequences, I said. Courage would have been not needing them. He asked if I would come to the wedding. Come as family, not as the landlord. I'll be there, I said. Front row. Wearing something from that boutique Diana doesn't consider a real label. He laughed, gently. I told him I was joking, but only partly. That I was done adjusting myself downward so that other people didn't have to feel uncomfortable around what I'd actually built. He said they never should have made me feel that was necessary. No, I said. But maybe now they'd notice when they did it. Sunday came clear and warm, the kind of morning Hartwell earns its reputation on. The oaks held the light. The lawn held the 300 chairs. I sat in the front row in a dress that fit the occasion, and when Diana walked down the aisle, she stopped at my row and held my eyes for a moment before continuing. No words. She didn't need them. The ceremony was what a ceremony should be, specific, present, not designed for anyone who wasn't there. When the publication called 2 weeks later, hoping to arrange their delayed feature, I returned the call myself and declined on Diana's behalf. There are days that belong to the people inside them. This was one of those. Photographs exist. The story doesn't need distribution. What I've been turning over since quietly is this: the version of me Diana was dismissing at that dinner table, the one who drove the old car and wore the plain dress and said little. She had built real things. She was sitting in a venue she owned, eating food from a kitchen she paid for, and still letting herself be subtracted from the picture. The money wasn't the point. The point was that I had accepted the terms of how I was being seen, and it had taken something public and unkind to make me stop. Have you ever let someone's low opinion of you go uncorrected for so long that correcting it started to feel like an act of aggression? I wonder sometimes what we preserve when we do that, and what we quietly give away.